No one knows what Jesus or Yeshua looked like almost 2,000 years ago, but I think it's safe to assume that he did not look like this.
Doesn't it, Pop?
This is Buddy Christ from the satirical film Dogma by Kevin Smith. Now, on the surface, this seems like nothing more than a shot at the Catholic Church and religion in general, but it actually points to a larger issue of how Jesus has been misrepresented for centuries by Hollywood and also by the Church. Let's back up. The Bible doesn't give us much information on Jesus' appearance, but there's a few passages that offer hints that the reader can use like clues. The Old Testament describes a king Messiah yet to come. He grew up before him like a tender shoot and like a root out of dry ground. He had no beauty or majesty to attract us to him, nothing in his appearance that we should desire him. During his life and ministry, Matthew writes, "His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became as white as the light." And following his death and resurrection, this is how the writers described his appearance. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothes were white as snow. Then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here. See my hands. Reach out your hand and put it into my side. Stop doubting and believe." Who, being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness. And being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross. Okay, so what clues can we gather from these few passages? Jesus was a man of flesh and blood with a beating heart. They repeat terms like light and white in order to convey some sense of radiant purity. And in his resurrected body, they highlight signs of his crucifixion with the holes in his hands and the stab wound in his side. What I find most interesting is the passage from Isaiah that feels counter to how many people view Jesus. He had no beauty or majesty to attract us to him, nothing in his appearance that we should desire him. This passage suggests that Jesus didn't stand out physically in any particular way. It's easy to infer that, not based on what's written in the text, but what's not written. The Bible isn't short on physical descriptions when they help give emphasis to the story. Leah is described as plain-looking, in contrast to her sister Rachel, who had a lovely figure and was beautiful. Esau is described as hairy and red-haired. David is described as glowing with health and having a fine appearance and handsome features. Samson had long hair. Paul's appearance was unimpressive. Saul was tall. Zacchaeus was short. By omitting any real physical descriptions of Jesus, it's telling us that his appearance was unremarkable in any tangible way that made him stand apart. He looked like the other men of that time and place. So what did other men of that time and place look like? Before I answer that question, let me quickly mention the sponsor of this video, Atlas VPN. This holiday season, give the gift of cyber security. It's so easy to get tricked online with phishing scams and untrustworthy links that make your personal data and information open to attacks. I've had a few scares in the past, and that's exactly why I started using Atlas VPN on all my devices. Atlas VPN was developed by top cybersecurity specialists and IT engineers back in 2019 with the goal of making the internet accessible and secure for everyone. And with over 6 million users worldwide, they've done just that. Atlas VPN blocks all malicious links, ads, and trackers at the source and notifies you whenever someone is trying to steal your data. This is the best VPN deal on the market, and right now they've sweetened the deal with a holiday special that amounts to 3 years at only $170 a month, plus 6 months entirely free and a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can check out everything they have to offer at zero risk to your wallet. With Atlas VPN, you can protect unlimited devices, but I think my favorite thing about Atlas VPN is that it helps me unlock content from all over the world. For instance, right now I'm watching a ton of Christmas movies to help me get in the seasonal spirit, and the few times I haven't been able to find something here in the United States on Netflix or another streaming service, I can simply change my geolocation to another country, and instantly I have access to that country's catalog of TV and films that I wouldn't otherwise be able to access. So have yourself a merry little private Christmas and a safe New Year's with Atlas VPN Premium, which again is a 3-year deal for $170 a month, plus 6 months free and a 30-day money-back guarantee. And with that, let's get back to the video. We don't know what Jesus looked like, but if all of the things that we do know about him are true, he was a Palestinian Jewish man living in Galilee in the 1st century. So he would have looked like a Palestinian Jewish man of the first century. He would have looked like a Jewish Galilean. The idea that Jesus didn't stand out in any particular way is reinforced when he was arrested in the Garden of Gethsemane before his crucifixion. Judas Iscariot had to point Jesus out to his soldiers among the disciples, presumably because they all looked similar in appearance. According to the Gospels, Jesus was a Jewish man born in Bethlehem and raised in the town of Nazareth, in Galilee, formerly Palestine, now northern Israel, during the 1st century AD. In her 2018 book, What Did Jesus Look Like?, Taylor used archaeological remains, historical texts, and ancient Egyptian funerary art to conclude that, like most people in Judea and Egypt around the time, Jesus most likely had brown eyes, dark brown to black hair, and olive brown skin. He may have stood about 5'5", the average man's height at that time. Robert Cargill stresses that we can never really know exactly what Jesus looked like. What did Jewish Galileans look like 2,000 years ago? That's the question. They probably didn't have blue eyes and blonde hair. Which leads me to this. This painting is called Head of Christ by American artist Warner Sallman. It's been called the best-known American artwork of the 20th century. But it's also responsible for tarnishing the world's view of Jesus and the church more than perhaps any work of art in modern history. There's one consistent pattern you can see in works of art depicting Jesus throughout time. People like to depict Jesus as a member of their own culture or ethnic group. Cultures tend to portray prominent religious figures to look like the dominant racial identity. Early renditions depicted Jesus beardless and with short hair, as was custom for Romans. That morphed into a more imposing Jesus with long flowing hair and beard that was reminiscent of Zeus, the leader of the Greek gods, or Jupiter, his Roman equivalent. The Coptic Church of Egypt separated in the 5th century and has a distinctive depiction of Jesus consistent with Coptic art. The Ethiopian Church, also Coptic, developed on Coptic traditions, but shows Jesus and all biblical figures with the Ethiopian appearance of its members. Other traditions in Asia and elsewhere also show the race of Jesus as that of the local population. In the Renaissance, European artists like Da Vinci and Michelangelo began to make Christ in their own likeness. These images spread quickly, and that's because white Christians were moving aggressively across the globe, colonizing and converting as they went. And they brought images of a white Jesus with them. For colonizers, white Jesus had a dual purpose. Not only did he represent Christianity, which colonizers wanted to spread, but his white skin put the colonizers themselves on the side of God. Linking themselves to Christ's authority created this power dynamic where white colonizers saw themselves doing the Lord's work as they placed themselves above the indigenous people. If white people used skin color as a tool of determining power and authority, of course Jesus had to be white. How could they worship a darker-skinned Jesus who looked like the very people they saw themselves superior to? Which brings us back to Sallman's Head of Christ. As a commercial artist working in Chicago, Sallman wanted a depiction of Jesus that would connect with young adults, and so he painted Jesus in a similar style to the school photos and professional photographs at the time, making it more accessible and familiar to the audience. And it worked. He sold the rights to a religious publisher, and that image exploded. It was on prayer cards circulated by organizations, missionaries, and a wide range of churches and denominations. Copies were given to World War II soldiers going into battle. It was on pencils, bookmarks, lamps, clocks, candles. And after a relatively short time, Sallman's image was so ingrained in culture that it soon overshadowed other depictions of Jesus.
That particular image of Jesus created by Sallman has stamped that particular image of Jesus on the consciences of people all over the country, even the African American community.
Again, it's common for people to depict Jesus as a member of their own culture or ethnic group, but against the backdrop of U.S. history, of European Christians colonizing indigenous lands and enslaving people with the blessing of the doctrine of discovery or manifest destiny, a white Jesus becomes very dangerous.
And when you look at the image of a white Christ in a black church, that is synonymous to black people bowing down to a white Jesus. It just does not work.
When tracking depictions of Jesus in film, a lot of these same visual patterns appear. Pulling from scripture, almost all interpretations incorporate long flowing white robes and a bright light. Many of the Christian films in early Hollywood were strongly conservative, simply telling Bible stories from different perspectives. King of Kings and The Greatest Story Ever Told follow Jesus.
I am the way, and the truth, and the life.
Ben-Hur plays out more like Forrest Gump, with an epic tale of revenge running parallel to the story of Jesus, occasionally bumping into Jesus and witnessing pivotal moments like Jesus' humble beginnings, his ministry, and his judgment and crucifixion. The Robe and Barabbas give different perspectives from otherwise minor characters in the Bible story. In this case, a Roman military officer responsible for Jesus' crucifixion,
previously owned by a carpenter of Galilee. How much will you risk against it?
and the prisoner who was pardoned by the crowd over Jesus. Following the major shift in Hollywood in the 60s and 70s with the crumbling studio system and rise in auteur filmmaking, portrayals of Jesus and the story of Jesus came with varying artistic interpretations. Jesus was suddenly dropped into a modern setting in films like Johnny Got His Gun.
How'd you learn that?
I used to do it at weddings.
Hey, can you do card tricks too?
Sure.
And Bad Lieutenant.
I did so many bad things. I'm sorry.
Bad Lieutenant shows us a crucified Jesus, with the crown of thorns, holes in his hands and feet, and the wound in his side.
Why should you want to know? Why are you obsessed with fighting?
Jesus Christ Superstar and Godspell are both musical adaptations of the Gospels, both with modern influences flooding into their loose, very loose adaptations. For instance, Jesus Christ Superstar has Roman soldiers dressed in purple tank tops, army pants, and hard hats wielding machine guns.
Behold your shattered king!
We have a king but Caesar!
You hypocrites! You hate us more than him!
We have a king but Caesar!
While Godspell drops Jesus into 1970s New York City, dressed like a flower child with an afro, suspenders, and face paint, touting peace and love.
One of you among us will betray me.
Could it be me, Lord?
Could it be me, Lord?
Probably me, Lord.
Rabbi, can you mean me?
How blessed are those of gentle spirit! They shall have the earth for their possession. They shall see God.
Speak up!
Quiet, Mom.
Well, I'll call you a thing.
There are the comical interpretations, like Life of Brian and History of the World Part 1, that juxtapose Jesus' reverence with a slapstick story.
All right. Jesus.
Yes.
What?
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 And then there's Superstar, where Jesus is basically just Will Ferrell in a beard and robe, with a bright emanating glow surrounding him.
You want a glass of water or something?
No, I'm good. I'm God.
All right.
Finally, there are the more modern films that take a reverent look at Jesus, but pose challenging questions, like The Last Temptation of Christ, which examines a Jesus that struggles with fear, doubt, depression, reluctance, and lust.
You want to know who my God is? Fear. You look inside me and that's all you'll find.
The film includes a disclaimer that says, this film is not based on the Gospels, but upon the fictional exploration of the eternal spiritual conflict. And then there are the dramas that examine smaller moments in Jesus' life, like The Passion of the Christ, which chronicles the betrayal, the passion, crucifixion, and resurrection. Last Days in the Desert imagines what happened during the 40 days Jesus fasted and prayed in the desert.
Oh, what anger. You are your father's son.
And the film Mary Magdalene examines Jesus' unique relationship with Mary Magdalene as one of his disciples. There are many American films that portray Jesus, but the same issue remains. A vast majority of them promote this white, blonde hair, blue-eyed Jesus to the world. When other countries portray Jesus, it tends to look like someone from their own culture or ethnic group too, like the Italian film The Gospel According to St. Matthew, the Indian film Karuna Mayudu, the Filipino film Cristo, and the Jordanian film The Savior. American films are slowly starting to change. especially the numerous TV miniseries that have come out in the past 10 to 15 years with a more diverse and culturally appropriate cast.
Hey, Korean Jesus.
I mean, even the 21 Jump Street movies are able to comment on the fact that Korean churches might prefer a Korean Jesus, and a Vietnamese church might prefer a Vietnamese Jesus.
Look at that. Vietnamese Jesus just dripping swag good.
But again, preferences aside, what did Jesus actually look like? Well, no one knows for sure, but it's safe to say that he sure as hell didn't look like this. Hey everyone, thanks so much for watching. If you like this video, please like it or share it or leave a comment below. Just in some way, if you could please engage with this video. That way we can persuade the algorithm gods to push this video so that way more people can see it. Thank you all for your continued support of the channel over the past year. It really means the world to me, especially with patrons, people spending their own money to help support this channel so I can make more videos, people who reach out through social media or leave comments below. All of those things really do mean a lot, especially for creators who kind of work in a bubble in their own house by themselves. Sometimes it's easy to feel aimless and like you're just screaming into a blank void. And so getting that feedback from you guys really does mean a lot, especially your support and encouragement. I hope everyone out there enjoys their holidays with friends and family and has a happy new year. And with that, I will see you all in 2023.